Institute of Design, Education and Architectural Studies, Nagpur. She is going to deliver a lecture on hydroponics for microclimate control in buildings. I think this is one of the relevant topics and very interesting one. Personally, I'm a structural engineer. So I used to design the structural design of the several buildings. So this is a very relevant and important topics for all of us, those who are connected through the architectural and structural design of the buildings. So I am sure that all of us, including the students and the others, faculty members, will be benefited by this one of the important topics, which is she is going to deliver the lectures. So now I am handing over microphone to the Hemang. I think you proceed further. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Now I would like to introduce our wonderful expert speaker to everyone. Dr. Kirti Bhonsle Nikam ma'am is an architect, academician and planner at Nagpur. She is Masters in Urban Planning and has completed her PhD in Creating Play Spaces for Children in Urban Settings from VNIT Nagpur. Now, she is now working as an Associate Professor at IDEAS Nagpur. She has worked in various schools of architecture in Indore, Jaipur and Chandigarh from 2004 onwards. She has authored the book Children's Play Dreams, published by Notion Press, Chennai. She has contributed research papers in national and international journals and conducted workshops in design graphics in schools of architecture at Jabalpur and Chandigarh. She was part of Kids India conference hosted by International Play Associates in Mumbai as a resource person and in the Arc Design 14 conference held at Istanbul on design methodologies. She was also awarded the NASA Best Teacher 2013 for her teaching methodology in basic design. She is recipient of Intact Research Grant 2018, which is given to individuals for her work on stepwells of Nagpur district. She runs her own architectural firm under the name of KN Associates and is working as a consultant at Innovation Tech Nagpur. She is a registered member at NAAC, a member of Council of Architecture, Institute of Town Planners, Intact and International Play Association, New Delhi, India. Her areas of interest include designing play space provisions for children, heritage and history of architecture, design, graphics, architecture and planning. She also writes blogs related to architecture and can be viewed at kirtibhosle.blogspot.com. It is such an honor to have you us today between us, ma'am. Please welcome Dr. Kirti Bhosle, ma'am.
Thank you so much, uh, Hemant, for giving this wonderful introduction. I would like to extend my thanks to Rajesh sir for inviting me as a guest lecturer. I would also like to thank Aditya Sanyal sir for having coordinated and invited me for this particular guest lecture. Last when we met, it was in one of the workshops which Aditya had organized in the department, and there we had a brief discussion on the same as to what kind of projects I am doing here at Nagpur. And since then this lecture was there in his mind that we need to organize something for the students at the department. So finally that has come to materialize today, uh, and I'll be sharing my projects with the students of IIT Banaras. It's a real honor for me to be with all of you, all the faculty and the students here at IIT Banaras. Thank you so much. Now with this, with this we can begin with the presentation. So the topic of my presentation here is basically relating to hydroponics and the microclimate, and how the hydroponics is actually affecting the microclimate of the buildings in the urban areas. So in the coming years, like in the past years, we have seen that the COVID-19 scenario has actually, brought about a major shift or a paradigm shift in the way how we look upon the cities and how the management of the urban centers in the city is actually taking place. So here we have realized that public health is something very important even in urban management, and we have seen a culture of work from home which has become so much prevalent. So as we find that there were a number of learnings which we had drawn from that particular situation, that a city with limited resources, and then we were trying to go back to the basics where the food, water, sanitation, and shelter became so much important for our sustenance in the city. Here we also realize that the cities need to be greatly self-sufficient in terms of food production, and there were a number of delays in the supply of the food into the city and the urban centers from the rural hinterland, and then transportation also tended to become a little difficult in that particular city. So, with all these concerns which were there in the past years, 2, 3 years, we have actually realized the importance of, the achieving of the sustainable development goals, and we have also realized how much important is, self-sufficiency in terms of cultivation of food and cultivation of crops, so much central to the cities also. So instead of looking at cities just as centers of consumption of the rural produce, we also need to look upon cities as something or places where they can be self-sufficient in terms of the food that they produce. And hence, we have also, to a certain extent, realized the importance of urban farming, and it is got a huge contribution, and its huge contribution to the accomplishment of the Sustainable Development Goals. So, looking on to the Sustainable Development Goals, if you all, you must be all aware of it, that there are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals which have been prescribed. And if we are looking into the urban farming and the hydroponics, basically, as one of the techniques of urban farming, we realize that certain goals, the sustainable goals like 2, which relate to zero hunger, goal 3, which relates to good health and well-being, goal 6, which relates to the clean water and sanitation, goal 7, which relates to the sustainable cities, goal 12, which relates to the responsible consumption and production, goal 13, which relates to the climate action, and goal 15, which relates to the life on land. Almost all these goals, somewhere or the other, will be affected by the kind of urban farming through hydroponics that we are trying to achieve. So, looking into this particular scenario and looking into the sustainable development goals, which these projects are, focusing on or will be pointing towards, we will move ahead with understanding as to what is microclimate. So, if we go look into the goal 13, which is the climate action, that is taking urgent action to combat climate change and its impact, it's also important for us to understand the role of hydroponics and in how it is helping in modifying the microclimate of the building, and thus being able to contribute in a way to the to the environment and to the climate of the particular of the urban areas. So, coming down to the microclimate, trying to understand, as you must all have studied in your subjects of climatology, climate, and architecture, that microclimate is like a local set of atmospheric conditions that differ from those in the surrounding areas, and often with a slight difference, but sometimes with a substantial one. And here, the importance of precipitation, the solar energy, temperature, water vapor, the wind, the kind of vegetation, and carbon dioxide content is something which are the factors which actually define the microclimate of the place. And the term, it also may refer to the areas as small as a few square meters, or the microclimate can extend on to large square kilometers of areas, and could also be the bigger sites. So in the dense urban areas, climate is affected by the urban thermal, physical, and geometrical characteristics, anthropogenic activities, and heat sources. So here it's important for us to understand microclimate, and the microclimate, the scale of the microclimate can vary from a very small residential plot to a neighborhood, to an entire sector or a zone in an urban city, and such other could be the scale of the microclimate. So here, when we are dealing with the word microclimate, we are trying to basically look upon the use of uh, you know the hydroponics in small scale plots. So right from the grassroots level, if we are like trying to bring in a change, what all and how we can use hydroponics to go about bringing that change. So the measuring of the microclimate can be done with all the factors which are affecting the microclimate of a place. The measurement of the microclimate can be done in space and in time. In space, if we talk about, it is relating to the changing factors rapidly or slowly. The variations in space, well mixed environment with all the factors in harmony with one another, or it could be the measurement of the microclimate in time, in terms of a long span of time. It could be done annually or it could be done seasonally. So while we are introducing certain projects like hydroponics and so on, we try and measure the microclimate also on a timely basis. So in terms of time and space, the measurement of the microclimate of the place can definitely be done. And whatever changes have been noticed, they can also be recorded. Now, if you all remember, you must have come across this particular image while we were studying climatology and climate and architecture. You must have come across the importance of how vegetation and landscape in and around the building play a major role. Like for example, trees should be at a distance from the north-facing side to allow the daylight. That is, if you want sufficient north light to come into the buildings and that too free of the glare, then the vegetation has to be away from the north facade of the building. Like the evergreen closely spaced trees and shrubs for shading the west-facing walls. In case the building is located in an area where you have got the maximum sun being received from the west side, so probably the vegetation could be planted so that the west the radiations from the west side can be cut off. Like the plantations of the deciduous trees that can provide the solar access during the winter, along with deep verandas on the south side for the shading purposes. So the deciduous trees could be on the south side so that the deciduous trees tend to, the leaves fall off in the winter season, allowing the winter sun to penetrate into the building. And in the summer season, you find it to be green so that it is providing some amount of shade. The evergreen trees placed at distance for shading the east-facing walls can also be provided. So we find that the plantations and landscape in and around the building, they do help in controlling the solar radiation, and they also help in funneling the wind through the building. So we also realize that the various factors which affect the microclimate, some factors are within the control of the designer. There are some other factors which are beyond the control of the designer. So we as architects, if we are looking into the things which we as designers or architects can control, include the orientation of the building, how you need to place the building blocks, what should be the amount of open spaces that you give in the plot? Should there be courtyards? Should there be passages? Or should there be, a very compact kind of a planning which one needs to do in plot depending upon the climate, the form and height, fenestrations or the openings, the tree cover and the wind. So these are certain factors which are within the control of the architect or the designer who is trying to design a particular building. And there are certain other factors which are outside the control of the designer, which include the local climate, the site, the surrounding building. So maybe you have a plot and there is a a 20-story high-rise building by the side of the plot, and that is not within our control. So the local climate, the site, the surroundings, the kind of buildings, and the topography is something which is outside the designer's control. So although there are both these factors are there which are affecting the microclimate, something which is within our control, we can definitely work upon it and we can also design it properly so as to achieve maximum comfort for the users of the building. Now moving on with the enhancing the microclimate. So what all things can be achieved if you enhance the microclimate? Now, the microclimate of a particular site or a building can be enhanced by when it is being enhanced, it probably maximizes outdoor comfort. It can discourage the growth of mosses and algae on the building facade. It it can give a good visual environment with the plants and other foliage which has been grown. It also helps in improving the durability of the building, and enhancing the microclimate also reduces the cost of heating and cooling which is required in the building. So, for example, if as we saw in the previous slide, if you have proper vegetation and trees planted on the side on particular, you know, proper directions, probably you can cut off the solar radiation, or you can allow the winds to enter into the building, or you can also allow the radiation to enter into the building on certain months of the year. As per the season, as per the the changes in the weather, you could actually bring about these kind of modifications. So enhancing the microclimate has a number of benefits which we are seeing here on this particular slide. It improves the age of the building, it gives a good visual effect, it maximizes comfort, and it also helps in the energy saving. Basically, the cost on lighting, heating, and ventilating the building would be affected if we have a good microclimate. Now, how do we achieve this, enhancement of the microclimate? So here, to be able to enhance the microclimate of a site, probably the farming or the hydroponics could be one of the options which we have tried to look upon. Here, hydroponics is one of the techniques of urban farming. So we look into urban farming as something which gives you the complete food system. It gives livelihood. It helps in the local economic development at the neighborhood level or the area level or the site level. It also helps in proper waste management and gives amount of sustainability. So if you look into the references of the World Meteorological Organization, it has suggested that more urban farming should take place. Why? Basically, as a response to climate change and as a way to build more resilient cities. Now, here we as architects and engineers, we can actually come up and take up this opportunity to be able to integrate food production into the city environment, to be able to evolve important benefits in the design, aesthetics, and social interaction. So here, the role of the architect and the engineer becomes very important because we are trying to work out solutions to these problems at the grassroots levels at the city, right? So, with this particular concept of urban farming, we are trying to have one of the techniques, we have explored one of the techniques of urban farming, that is hydroponics, into the design of the building, and we have tried to integrate the hydroponics into the building so as to be able to affect the microclimate of the building and to bring about a change at the grassroots level. So, moving ahead with understanding what is hydroponics is something important for us. Hydroponic growing, this can be done indoors or outdoors. And hydroponic, as the name suggests, hydro is something relating to water, and phonic is something which relates to the use of the pipes which have been done with the holes which have been made on that, and the kind of sound that it produces. That is something which relates to the entire world of the hydroponic. So hydroponic is something which is relating to growing the plants with water as one of the medium, right? So the thick things that are needed in hydroponics is light, air, water, nutrients, heat, and space. So hydroponics is the cultivation of the crops without soil, and the plants are grown in a nutrient-rich water-based solution. And there are a number of benefits of hydroponics which you can see on this particular slide, where you have, zero soil, more plants can be grown in a given or a smaller area. After initial expenses, costs are reduced in terms of energy saving. Then there are no weeds or there are fewer pests and diseases in hydroponics. It helps in saving water because the water can be recycled and reused. There is a better growth rate of the plant. So you find it in the coming slides. You'll actually be able to see how, in a smaller span of time, you achieve better growth of the plant. You have less labor intensive and no tilling or sowing is required in this particular way of growing the plant. Solvents can be recycled and there is control over the climate, hence cultivation can be done all the year round. So with this, exploring this technique of urban farming, we find that in either setting, plants will need 5 to 6 hours of light per day, and access to electricity and an area that is level and without excessive wind is the only prerequisite that we need to go in for when we are trying to use hydroponics in the particular site. So now the hydroponics which we begin on a particular plot or on a particular site, it has got certain stages which needs to be followed. So what are those stages of hydroponics? So the very first stage of hydroponic is system installation. So in the system installation, we have to prepare for a framework or a structure in which we can have the plant being put along with the water supply which is going on, and the plants have a proper heat, light, air, ventilation, everything what we talked about in the previous slide can be achieved. So the system installation is the very first stage. Second is seed germination. So here in this stage 2, what you can see in the slide also, you can see that there are small trays in which the seeds are being put for germination purpose. Then the next stage is the plant transfer. Once the saplings have come out, then the plants can be transferred, and then there is nutrient management, and you also require regular monitoring. So here the most important aspect of hydroponic gardening is that you have to have a good monitoring or regular checking of the growth of plant, what kind of nutrient needs to be given, or do you need to change the water at regular intervals of time. These are certain things and care which you need to take once you have the hydroponic system installed in your residence or in your plot. Now, the hydroponic system basically requires some very typical components, and these components include the growing media, the very first thing. So now, like hydroponics is a soilless technology, so as a substitute, we need the growing media, which include coco peat moss, growing tubes, the rock wool, oasis tubes, etc. They can be used. So here you find that like the coco pit has got two levels between 0.6 and 0.7, and that can be used as a growing media. So the germination of the seeds basically can take place with the growing media. Then you also need the air stone or the clay ball, and the purpose is basically dissolved oxygen. One of the critical parameters of water is important for the plant to grow, and the air stone dispense tiny bubbles of dissolved oxygen throughout into the system. Then we also need the net pots. These are plastic small net pots, and these are used to these allow the roots to grow out of the side and bottom of the pot, which can then be installed in the hydroponic system. So these are around 2 inches, 3 inches, or 5 inches, and they are made in HDPE and UV stabilized. The other things which are required are the plastic tubes. Now, these plastic tubes have to be of the food grade quality, and the pipe can have a different cross sections as per your design. It could be square or circular or rectangular, and the selection of the plastic pipe material is critical. It must be of the food grade, and in general, size of the pipe is kept around 4 inches diameter, and this pipe carries the net pot, growing media, the air stone, marbles, etc. Then, to be able to circulate the water continuously through the hydroponic system, you need the air pump or the submersible pump. Now, air pumps provide the air to the air stone, which will bubble the nutrient solution, and air pump helps to reach oxygen to the deep roots of the plant. So it's something which has been required for proper circulation of the water in the system. This can be of 15 to 35. The pH sensors and the TDS sensors are also required. This is something which is given to the clients as the hydroponic kit, because the recording of the pH sensor, the pH recording and the TDS needs to be recorded continuously. So hydroponics may include every type of sensor that you would need for water treatment and measurement, which extent to pH sensors and the TDS sensors. Right. So we need to be very careful about the water quality. That's the most important prerequisite. Right. So when you are moving ahead with installation of hydroponic system in your residence or in your terraces or in the balconies, you need to have these two instruments ready. Now here the details of hydroponics. The hydroponics can play a vital role in changing the way we think about plant growth and may well be the future of gardening and farming. So here the technology, if you look into this, we have the nutrient film technique which has been used, and this replaces the soil with a nutrient-rich water solution. So as in the slide, you can see on the left-hand corner, the air pump and the air stones have been placed, and there is a water pump which has been installed. And you find that the water is being continuously taken into the pipe where the the net pots are there and the roots of the plants are coming out, and the roots are drawing the nutrients from the water. So as compared to the soil, the roots have to strive a lot to be able to get the nutrients from the soil. मतलब soil में पानी है, पानी में nutrients mix होके फिर वो root को खींचना पड़ता है. So the plant has to take a lot of effort if it is being put into the soil. But if you have in the nutrient film technique, what you find that the roots have to take the nutrition from the water. So it is much more easier. That's the reason why the plants can grow so fast and in a very nice way, in a shorter duration of time. The aeroponics is another one less common method of indoor farming where the plant roots are suspended in the air and absorb the nutrients to a fog-like atmosphere. So you can see here that the mist novels have been provided so that the space could be given onto the roots from where they can actually do the nutrients. So these are the two ways in which the hydroponics can be worked out. So in most of our projects, we have gone in for using the NFT technique. So now we are actually coming to the most interesting part of this particular lecture, which is the hands-on with the hydroponics. So I'll be discussing with you around 5 different projects which we have undertaken here at Nagpur, and they range from the plot to the terraces to the side margins being used for growing the hydroponic system, also to the balconies in the apartment building. So the very first project is the one which is an independent house at Bharatnagar in Nagpur. This has got an area of around 3,000 square feet, and it's a west-facing, building facade. So the terrace space of this particular building has been divided into 2 levels. So you can see in a small sketch plan also here. Yeah. So in this particular slide, you can actually see. Hello, am I audible, everybody?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
So now in this particular slide, you can actually see a small sketch which is showing the terrace being divided into 2 levels, right? The upper terrace is covered with the solar panels, and the lower terrace has the central ventilator, and hence the hydroponic system was located on this. And here we have used the nutrient film technique and the toilet spray system. And there are around 72 plants in 8 pipes in the NFT system and 22 plants in trays along the south wall. So as per the client's requirements, you can select the kind of vegetables and fruits that you want to grow. Like they were quite elderly people, so they were more interested in coming up with fresh salad things like the lettuce, broccoli, capsicum, cabbage, tomato, and so on. So here, according to the taste of the family, the crops or the kind of vegetable you want to grow is an option for you. So this is also something that you can think of. Now, as I told you in the previous slide, that in the hydroponic system, the very first stage is the installation of the structure. So here, the freestanding installation A-type, A-shaped structure was being used. And in the second photograph, as you can see here, there is the transfer of the sampling in the system, which has been done. This is the growth what you can see in a week's time, right? So and the left hand corner of the slide, you can see how within a week this is the growth of the plant which has been achieved. After 3 weeks, the growth of the plant, and after 6 weeks, you can actually see how beautifully the plants have actually grown. So the growth rate of the plants is high because they are being able to draw the nutrients from the water quite effortlessly, right? So that's the plus point. In the next project that we did was a residence having a plot size of around 2200 square feet, and here the restriction was that we could use only one of the wall facades. So here the wall installation was being done, as against in the previous project where we had an A-shaped installation and the entire structure was being used with 8 pipes. Here we have got wall-mounted installation, and this house is facing eastward, and the staircase wall facing the east has been utilized for the nutrient film technique of hydroponics. This has also been provided with a green net. So you have some amount of green net which has been provided for shading purposes. So as per the client's requirement, here tomato, capsicum, brinjal, cauliflower. So these were the the vegetables which were being grown, and here we have used around 5 to 6 pipes have been used here, and in this we have got around 60 plants. So you can see the number of plants, the rate of growth, everything is quite faster in the hydroponic. In future, now this whole terrace will have the other hydroponic systems also, like the Dutch bucket, the grow bag, and the planters. So it's not that once the architect and the engineer is involved into the hydroponic project, it is the one-time thing which is required. No, it's not so. You have to be in regular touch with the system, and it is always that the client asks for moving on to developing their terraces and developing their hydroponic systems further on to other mediums also. So that's a good thing about the hydroponic. So here in this particular next slide, what we are trying to see is the on-site sketches which were drawn, and the one finalized on the right shows the network of the pipes and the water flow. So this is how the flow of the water actually takes place. So it is an entire system and a circuit through which the water is allowed to flow and come back to the tank. So in the stage one, with the available wall on this wall facade, the fixtures were being placed into which the pipes were then fitted in. In stage two, you can see how the pipes were fitted in with the holes here. And in stage three, there were the connections which were being made to the pipe, and then all these connections were being drawn into the tank where the water was being stored, and there was a submersible pump also installed so that it could pump the water into the different sections of the the pipes. And this is the stage 5, the final wall phase, how it looked like within 6 weeks of its installation. So that's the beauty of hydroponics, that it is quick and beautiful. Plus, it was also uh, rich in the nutrients. So you know what are the nutrients that you're putting into the water, and what is the vegetable or the plant that you're growing rich in. तो you need not be worried कि किस तरह के chemicals डाल के ये पेड़ उगाए गए हैं या क्या इसमें डाला हुआ है, या is there the content of certain chemical which is very high or low, that you can definitely monitor. So within your own reach, you can get fresh vegetables and fruit, which is an important consideration for healthy living in the present time. Now the next project that we did was the third one. Here, this is Mr. Mate's residence. This is in Nagar in Nagpur, and this is an independent house having an area of around 1860 square feet. The house is a ground floor structure facing the east and is a corner plot. Initially, the NFT system grow bags were installed on the terrace. As you can see in the photograph here on the right and top corner, this is the terrace of the house. And initially, NFT and grow bags were used. And then later on in the phase 2, we had the concept of the shade net and the terrace garden which was actually created. So now the client is quite confident enough, and we went for the next advanced level of hydroponics, where the complete setup, including NFT, Dutch buckets, blue bags, long trays, and the planters, all have been installed within the shade net, and even the foggers have been used. Uh, the cooling pads and sensors provide the control environment, and the various kinds of vegetables as per the requirement of the family were also being taken care of. So the terrace was divided into phase 1 and phase 2 of the hydroponic system garden. So this is an important thing that we did in Mr. Pathel's residence. So this was, as you can see, in the layout plan, and in the sections also you can see that there were different, you know, uh, yeah. So the tray setup was beside the wall, and you can see the different, installations. The foggers were installed on the roof with the structure of the pipe which was there. The water tanks were being installed, and all the three systems of the deep water culture, the tray system, and the NFT system. All the three have been. So in the three different layout plans, you can see the location of the Dutch bucket, which is at the center, and then the NFT system has been coming up at the wall facade. And on the two other faces, we again have the tray setup. So the tray setup is at the lower level, the pipe setup is at the upper level. So at two different levels, we have got the system which has been installed. So here, this the deep water culture and the NFT is being used for growing the cherry, tomato, brinjal, and capsicum. Structural system here for making of this entire thing consists of the MS fabrication in pipe, square and round. So dimension of the overall dimension of this is around 12 feet by 24 by 10 feet. And here the foggers, as you can see, at the upper level. So the structure which actually holds the shade net is actually having the foggers for humidity and temperature control, about 8 in number, with spacing of 6 to 8 feet and at a height of 8 feet from the terrace level has been installed. So as the temperature of Nagpur, raises quite a lot in the summer season, it goes to around 48 degrees and so on. So we also need foggers to maintain the humidity level within the shade net. So this was one which was done. Moving further, these are the sketches which were being made on-site sketches, some of them, and this is the stages in which the structure was being raised. So you can see the water tank, the location of the Dutch bucket, and how the shade net was then installed. And this is how it looked like from the inside. So the bucket system is placed in the north-south axis facing eastward. The image here shows the on-site layout plan section and elevation, and the phase 2 will be designed. So this is actually the phase 1 and the phase 2, which has actually come up now. Now the next project is the Mr. Kose's residence here in Manewada at Nagpur. So this again has got a system of hydroponics installed in his residence, and he is a retired school teacher who has taken the initiative of taking up this farming to serve both purposes of recreation as well as source of earning. So if the produce is more than what the family requires, probably it will also be let out for selling for the neighbors and such other people or the relatives. So in this terrace garden, the deep water culture in the Dutch buckets and NFT system is used. It is used for growing the cherry, tomato, brinjal, capsicum, etc. And they also had the idea of coming up with the growing of turmeric and ginger, so that would happen in the tray system of the hydroponic. This is the kind of layout that we actually designed for them. So here, this entire shade net installation was around 14 feet by 20 by 10 feet. And the structural system using square and round pipes was again being taken up. And the NFT Dutch bucket and tray system with grow bags and grow sacks have been used here. So we can see here, as per the availability of the space, we went in for a pitched kind of roof which was being provided. Here we have also gone about understanding the client's requirement and reusing some of the material which they already have. So it's not that we always try to make it very expensive for the for the residents, but with the available material, if they have certain pipes and certain shade nets available with them, we try to utilize that only in the construction of the entire system. So here, to humidify and to bring down the temperatures, the fogger is used inside. They are 7 in number at a spacing of around 6 to 8 feet in the center at a height of 8 feet from the terrace level. So here the layout was a little different as compared to the previous system, where the NFT system was again an A-type structure, what you can see here with the water pump at the base. So you can see that in the section. Then the vertical farming tray system was being installed here at the quarter of the terrace, and then the Dutch buckets were being laid down. So we find that the trays were stacked vertically. So we had around 1, 2, and 3 trays which were stacked vertically, and the foggers were installed at a height of 8 feet. So when you enter into these kind of terrace gardens, you actually are able to feel the entire the vegetation and the growth can actually be felt, and you also find that a number of birds, a number of insects are also into this particular kind of an environment. So you find new visitors into the area and into the buildings that have these kind of terraces. So that was quite interesting when we were doing this particular project. And then the project number 5 is basically this is the residence of Mr. Mantar. So he has a flat at Manish Nagar in Nagpur, and this is a flat which has got certain balcony. So we had a very limited area in which we could have the hydroponic system installed. So we find the periphery of the balcony has been used for the installation of the hydroponic pipe system, and the pump has been kept within the balcony. So here the NFT system installation at the balcony of a flat of Mr. Mansar was being done. Um, Here it measures having an area of around 3.5 meter by 2.2 meters, and you can also find that the children are also into and interested into the kind of installation which has been done, and they also contribute to growing the seed, transferring the plants from the net pots into the system, and so on. So this is an important kind of initiative where the entire family also gets involved into the project, and the children also learn the importance of growing their own food, and which is an important lesson which needs to be taught to the future generation. So here the children are quite interested also in taking up the recordings like the TDS recordings and the pH levels of the water. So they take a lot of interest into the kind of venture which the parents are doing, and it becomes the entire family's important pastime. So that's how it is being looked upon. Now, when we are discussing about the projects which have been taken up by us in Nagpur at the grassroots level, we are trying to bring in a change and having the hydroponic system. Basically, we identified that there are certain critical parameters in hydroponics which need to be catered to. The first important is the water quality, and the second is temperature during the summers. So these are the two things which are too critical. So when we are saying water quality, so in terms of TDS, EC, and pH values, etc., so the water quality check is important. So before even we begin with the particular project, we try to see the pH levels and the TDS according to the water. The second is the temperature rises to around, as I already said, 28 degrees Celsius, and so in the summer, it makes it very hot, and so the water in the system also becomes quite hot. So that may not allow the plants to sustain. So we have also thought about additional measures, how we can reduce the heat impact and how that can be reduced. So this can be by having thermal insulation to the water reservoir. That is, we don't allow the reservoir itself to get heated up. And there is another one provision, that is having the chiller in the system. So if you have the chiller which is been installed, probably the temperature of the water doesn't rise and the one which is flowing also remains cool. And with the shade net, again the temperatures are brought down. So that is one consideration which is extremely important for all of us to remember when we are working in hot climate like now. Now, as through running through the entire presentation, you must have realized there are a number of advantages. So here in hydroponics, they grow up to 50% faster than the time that they require to grow on the soil. Virtually, it eliminates the need for herbicides and pesticides compared to traditional soil gardening. Here, the water can be reused, reducing the constant need for the fresh water supply. But in hydroponic system, the water has to be changed after every 15 days or 20 days or so. Utilize the yard space or a tiny balcony or a terrace to create the hydroponic garden. So even if one has got a, as we saw in the last project, that was a balcony. So even in a small balcony, which you have very less area, there also, you can utilize the periphery of the balcony and such other places to be able to grow the plant. The most important thing about this system is that you get the fresh produce close to your house. So once you cut the cut the plug the vegetables, you can actually cook it immediately. So you are consuming it within 6 hours of it being plugged from the plant. So here the nutrient levels are very high, and it can be harvested from a hydroponic garden throughout the year. So the freshness of the vegetables that you are eating is an important consideration. So in urban areas, usually this is a problem that from the rural areas, the plants have been plugged, and after 15 days, sitting in the urban areas, we are consuming that. So if you closely look at it, during the transportation and the transferring of the vegetables from the vendors to the retailers and so on and so forth, you find that the nutrient level in that particular vegetable has gone down. So that is not the case if you're having the hydroponic system within your house, and you can get the fresh vegetables and fruits. But there are certain disadvantages also. So initially you find that the cost of installation of the hydroponic system is not cheap. It is not good. But in the longer run, you find that you have the recovery of all the investments that you have done, and more so for all the investment that you have done, you actually get a healthier life. So you actually are taking more care of your health while you are doing this. Growing the hydroponic system, it demands quite a lot of expertise. So it's not just the expertise of the architect and the engineer, which is required to install and to design and to bring it to working, but we also need at times the expertise of agriculturalists, right? Our agronomists also, so as to be able to regulate the nutrients into the water properly. Production is limited compared to the field conditions. So here, as per the number of pipes that you are installing and the number of plants that you are installing in the particular pipe, you can have the production. So as per the family's requirement, the vegetables and fruits can be grown. And the another one disadvantage is that if a disease appears, then all the plants in the system will be affected. जैसे कि we say that water में nutrient डाला, so it is quick for the plants to take that nutrition and grow. The same is the case, the corollary is also true that अगर कोई disease भी होगा, तो वो भी बहुत तेजी से फैलता है. So you need to replace all the plants and then come up with a fresh plant. So that is how we can see the advantages and the disadvantages of the hydroponic system. But definitely, if you see, the advantages are more as compared to the disadvantages. So moving on further, understanding the role of architects in the hydroponic. So in the cities and urban areas, they are composed of different land uses, and all the different land uses probably could have some kind of hydroponic system which can be installed, and based on the land use typology and the needs of the client, the space evaluation can be done to check the feasibility of proposing the hydroponic system. Like in the foreign countries, we find that the entire rooftop of the hotel or residences have been used for, growing the plants. But in the Indian context, it is still to come up as a revolution. So the existing space, its orientation, electricity and water availability, they can be evaluated in terms of quality and quantity before suggesting the system. So here we are supposed to be very careful as to when we are trying to give it to a particular typology. Since majorly we have done projects relating to residences, so it was on a smaller scale, and we could convince the client properly to be able to come up with a system. But when you are taking out on a larger scale, maybe for the hotels or for the the schools or such other places, then you need to have very specific about the orientation, the water quality, and such other. Now, the space availability with the increase in urban farming, urbanization, the hydroponic farming can present as a attractive solution to the growing demand for close to source produce. Now, this is important. So, close to source produce. So, here you are cutting down on transportation. You are also cutting down on the delay of the time and the lower nutrient content in the vegetable. The produce is grown much closer to where it is consumed, cutting out the need for transportation, and better yields cut down on the amount of land used for the traditional farming. So you are utilizing the roof for the farming purposes. It can be started in the cities and grown on the rooftop, communal gardens, elevated shafts, and certain unused cargo shelters, adding to the eco-aesthetic aspects of the building design. So even certain discarded land in the neighborhood or certain left out spaces could be used for hydroponic gardening, and the community could actually be responsible for it. Could be like a community based initiative that can be taken up to come up with certain kinds of plants and vegetables. So that is the intention basically, to involve people into it and have a better bonding. Plus, it has got environmental and health benefits. They are already there. Now, when we talk of the eco-aesthetic aspect of the building design, probably there could be a number of variations which can be done. So we are also innovating, and we are also trying to come up with different beautiful designs. These are some of the examples which have been drawn, which are there in foreign countries also. So these pictures have been collected, and there could be these are some of the aesthetic aspects which have been added on to the hydroponic farming, but we can add much more to it. So we have also been experimenting with the hydroponic systems, which can be installed as corner artifact pieces inside the houses or in the hotel lobbies or such other places. And we have also come up with certain designs which could be on the wall to start with how beautifully the hydroponic system can be integrated into the interiors also. So maybe in the coming up presentations, maybe in future, I would be able to talk more on that. We are still working on it. Here, once we are coming to the end of the presentation, we basically realize that microclimate can definitely be controlled through hydroponics. That is, the hydroponic gardens, they can be easily contained within a hydroponic greenhouse or other structures like we did in Mr. Mate's residence and Mr. Khuse's residence. It means that we can have the buildings can have their own microclimate, insulated from many of the difficulties that the traditional farmers used to address in the previous time. The hydroponic plants aren't left to the mercy of the pests. They don't need to be treated with a wide range of insecticides. You know what kind of pesticides or chemicals you have been using on the plant, right? So you can be very careful about selecting the kind of things which you are giving to the plant in your hydroponic system at your house. So in the temperature control facility, plants can be grown year round, regardless of the climate or the weather which is outside. We can also at times have artificial grow lights. Now, since in Nagpur's context, it was not a problem that we have a problem with sunlight, but in certain places, areas, we can have artificial grow lights if the amount of sun is not available to the sufficient quantity. The hydroponic gardens, they serve as large heat sinks that radiate the heat and increase the ambient air temperature. So when we did the installations on the terraces, we find that the temperature of the the lower floors actually was brought down to around 5 to 8 degrees. So there was a reduction in the amount of temperature also. So the RCC slab, and over that we are having these the hydroponic greenhouse or the shade net which we had installed. So that actually helps in bringing the temperature also. Hydroponic system thermoregulate the buildings by trapping the heat in the winter and cooling the buildings in the summer. So the air quality inside the house can also be improved by growing plants on the interior walls. And commercial centers, they can have those decorated walls with into hydroponic for an improved air inside. So you have a number of benefits when we are talking of hydroponics and its importance in microclimate. So if we look into the larger scale, अभी तो हम grassroots level पे या plot level पे बात कर रहे थे, लेकिन if we are moving on to the urban scale, then we find that the microclimate improves with the hydroponic system, adding to the urban biodiversity also and improve living conditions. It helps to conserve water, reduce the urban heat island effect also, improving the air quality. At the urban scale, with these installations, the food production can be combined with other services to the city dwellers, such as you can have, or you can think of agrotourism or park and landscape maintenance, etc. Or we can have some kind of productive park. So at the community level, if you are having such kind of a system which is there, it could be for the entire community, and there could be employment given to people in terms of maintenance and upkeep of these gardens, and you could be sure about what you are plucking and what you are eating. So, and that also gives a very good message and education to the children of the community. That is, we are trying to respect the produce that we are getting, the things that we are eating, and we are in a position to cultivate what we require for our sustenance. So now coming down to the role of architects and their contribution. So to meet the client's requirements of providing hydroponics in the existing building as per the space available on balcony terrace, to propose more definitions of landscaping while designing buildings which are utility and aesthetic based. So here, Abhi, to begin with, like our projects are majorly on existing buildings, and then we are trying to have hydroponic system. But in case there are some more sensitive architects and landscape designers, they can probably integrate these systems into the design of the building itself right from the initial stages, right from the design of the courtyard to the kind of walls and where do you want the hydroponic installations, all can be integrated with the design of the building itself. Now, making the inclusive designs which provide for better cooling of the roof, walls, etc. Better oxygen content will be there in the ambient residence environment, and overall, all these kind of efforts actually also help in improving the biodiversity of the building environment. Like for example, with a very small installation which we did at Madesar's residence, we find that the kind of birds and the insects, the butterflies that were coming into that particular area is also quite different, and we could actually notice these things happening. So even with a very small installation and an effort which we did, we could actually find a variety of birds, butterflies, insects actually reaching out to these areas. Now coming to the role of engineers, to coordinate with the client and the architect to provide better infrastructure for installation of the hydroponic system, because architects and engineers need to work in coordination so that to be able to give the best to the client. And here to quantify the water, the electricity requirements for the proposed system, we definitely needed the support of the engineers. So what is the amount of water calculation, the electricity requirements, and such other things for individual projects. Check the quality of the water, solar power as per the client's requirements. So in case a particular project has got some kind of solar panels which are, installed on the terraces, probably that the energy from the solar panels will be used to run the submersible pump in the hydroponic. And to mobilize and implement the hydroponic projects to reality, we do need the help of engineers, no doubt. Now here, as I'm addressing mostly to the students and the faculty of architecture, I feel that the students, and the young generation has got the biggest of all responsibility. That is they have to promote urban farming as one of the urban regeneration tools to the cities. Now, this is a little bigger terminology, but trying to achieve self-sufficiency in one of the ways, creating the awareness among children about the need and the importance of farming. That's another important thing. So, as young students and architects, we need to be, sensitive towards the concerns of growing our own food. Then the social interaction and increasing the job opportunities along with environmental benefits that can be offered as a return to the urban areas. So now no more the concept of urban areas as cores which are just consuming and not giving back. So that particular concept needs to be reversed now in the current situation when we are having the climate as one of the challenges, the water is one of the challenges, food is one of the challenges, health is a challenge, and sanitation and such other things are also a challenge for all of us. So here I feel that through these projects, a small change is about to come, wherein people are able to understand the importance of these things and how, as urban dwellers, we can also contribute our bit to maintaining the climate of a particular place. And we are also giving back to the society in we're giving back to the nature as responsible architects, as responsible citizens. So I hope this is the end of the presentation, and I hope I have made my point quite clear and the efforts that we have been taking. So they are not very massive projects that we have come up with, but definitely the small efforts which have actually we have tried to make and bring in a change. So it's not just about educating the children and the future generations, but identifying the roles and responsibility of architects, engineers as students to be able to contribute a bit to the environment. That's how I would like to come to the end of this presentation. Thank you so much, all of you, for being such wonderful listeners and bearing with me for around an hour or so. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. The session was very informative. We will go ahead and take some time for the questions now. I would like to invite students to ask questions or clarify their doubts.
Aman, please go ahead. Aman? Dipti, yes?
Good morning, good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. So, yeah, I had the question regarding is there a difference as to where shall we involve NFT or where should we go for deep water culture?
Yeah. So this is a very good question that you have put up. Like mostly when we are saying hydroponics, we have the NFT system or the aeroponics system. Mostly we are using the NFT. So here, depending upon the plant type which you have selected and the kind of root system it has, you will go in for the NFT or the Dutch bucket system. So in the NFT system, you find that the diameter of the pipes is around 4 inches, which we are taking, and there is a continuous flow of the water with it, with the nutrients in it. So you find that those plants which have got a fibrous root system would be installed in the NFT system. And for the Dutch bucket, where like vegetables like carrots or radish or ginger, turmeric, such vegetables could be grown for in the Dutch bucket system, wherein you also have some amount of sand which is there, and you find they are the underground vegetables basically. They're found below the ground. So potato and other vegetables could come up there in the Dutch bucket system. Or those who have got the tap root system, मतलब उनके root का जो length है ना वो ज़्यादा रहता है. So there you find Dutch buckets which have been used.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. And ma'am, like you said that there should be a sometimes there are chiller systems installed for maintaining the temperature. So what about the energy consumed? Like we are incorporating a lot of systems then just to reuse water.
Yes. Now the chiller system, what I said, is basically a chiller plate which is there, and that is actually bringing down the temperature. That was mostly an engineering part of the thing that you have asked. but the chiller plates help in bringing down the temperature of the water. तो वो ठंडा करता है पानी को. तो ये जो चीज है टैंक में ही इंस्टॉल की जाती है, और that is mostly used in the summer months, not throughout the year. So during the summer months, when the temperature has to be regulated, that time we have the chiller which is installed. And in case you have a solar panel installed in your house, then you can link the hydroponic system, or जिस इसमें जो भी requirement है electricity की, you can take it from the solar panels itself. So that is only in certain climatic conditions, yeah, or
Okay.
particular seasons of.
Yes, ma'am. And ma'am, just one last part. Okay, so after like what amount of time are these saplings like taken out of the pipe, or is it grown entirely in the pipe system only?
This is again very interesting. I think Dipti is quite into the hydroponic system, and she is quite alert about it also. So here the seeds जो है वो पहले ट्रे में लगाए जाते हैं. सीड्स जैसे जर्मिनेट होके सैपलिंग फॉर्म में आते हैं, तो सैपलिंग फॉर्म में जब आते हैं उसके बाद में वो सैपलिंग्स को इंस्टॉल किया जाता है नेट पॉट में, एंड देन इट इज पुट इनटू द पाइप्स, एंड देयर इट इज अलाउड टू ग्रो. So as you remember in some of the slides which I have shown, it takes around 4 to 6 weeks for the plants to grow and bloom properly in a at a proper level of growth. So they are fully grown at the 4 to 6 weeks of time.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
And the saplings come up within 2 to 3 weeks, 2 weeks or so. After 2 weeks, the saplings can be seen.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for a very interesting presentation. Ma'am, I had one doubt, ma'am, like once the nutrients in the water have been completely absorbed by the plants, just like in soil, like when the top nutrients get eroded or being used up, we add fertilizers, right? So do we
Yeah.
have some system for water replacement? And if so, is it done manually?
Yeah, to a certain extent. अभी जो हमने projects किए हैं यहाँ नागपुर में, basically we find that we are doing many of the things manually, but definitely you can have artificial intelligence and you can have control panels and monitoring. So it can be a fully mechanized system also that you can have. But here for the time being, when you have to replace the water, it is majorly the water in the tank which needs to be emptied, and then fresh water needs to be filled in. That is because the oxygen content in the water tends to go down. And just like you have the the fish tanks and all जिसमें हम water clean करते हैं, and then again we fill in the fresh water, that has to be done maybe in a duration of 20-25 days or so. You need to change the water and have fresh water. But ये जो पानी आप निकालते हैं, this can again be used for flushing and such other purposes in the house. तो ये ऐसा
Yeah.
बिल्कुल भी नहीं है कि इसमें का जो पानी निकला वो पूरा का पूरा वेस्ट जा रहा है. No, it can be reused for flushing and such other purposes, no doubt.
Yes, ma'am. That's what was going on in my mind. Like, why not to use artificial intelligence in that? Actually, we are also making one project known as AI tree and using artificial intelligence in that. So probably that's what the thing that interests me a lot in this. Ma'am, one more question. Like, as we've seen in your PPT, and you told that the plants are able to absorb water without much effort. Like, how the plants are able to do so? Uh,
This is very easy to understand, and if you go back to your schooling, you will realize जो हम solvent solutions वगैरह जो बनाते थे पहले, so it is always easy to draw nutrients from the water. Why? Because plants already contain 90% of water. जैसे कि human beings. In human beings also 70 to 80%, 75% of the human body is again having water. So we find that water या पानी में mix किया हुआ कुछ भी न्यूट्रिशन जो है वो जल्दी एब्जॉर्ब होता है हमारे बॉडी में. उसी तरह the plants also are able to absorb the nutrients from the water much more faster, and they have to strive a lot if the water is mixed, water and nutrition is mixed in the soil, and from that they need to draw the nutrients. तो उसमें एफर्ट्स ज्यादा लगते हैं. जैसे कि हम बीमार पड़ते हैं तो भी क्या होता है, हमको लिक्विड ड्रिंक्स ज्यादा दिया जाता है, जैसे कि saline water, or we have got the juices and everything. Why? Because juices जो हैं they are easily absorbed by the body as compared to the solid food, right? So the same thing is also for the plants also. If water में nutrients अगर आपने डाले, so that will be quickly absorbed by the roots, easier, and then it comes into their system, which is very important for their growth. So it's a very simple logic that liquid में आपने कोई चीज मिक्स करके पानी को ऐसा मीडियम यूज किया, तो उसमें जो न्यूट्रिएंट एब्जॉर्प्शन है फास्ट होता है. So here in hydroponic we also realize the importance of water. That's the crucial. पानी का जो इम्पोर्टेंस है वो हमें पता चलता है, और इसमें कन्वेंशनल सिस्टम जो है एग्रीकल्चर के फार्मिंग के, उससे हमें कई गुना कम पानी लगता है. So that is again a plus point which we need to record in while we are staying in the urban areas. जैसे कि अभी चेन्नई में, बैंगलोर में, you find there is so much of water crisis which is already started. So imagine, we using so much of water, and we as urban dwellers, we are just consuming energy, consuming resources. So we have like become, centers of drawing energy and not giving back. So something needs to be done about it, and here water is also being conserved as an important thing. तो मतलब रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग तो बिल्डिंग में था ही, प्लस रेन वाटर अगर आपने हार्वेस्ट किया तो प्रोबेबली दैट कैन बी यूज्ड फॉर द हाइड्रोपोनिक सिस्टम आल्सो फॉर ग्रोइंग योर प्लांट, एंड यू कैन रिड्यूस द वाटर रिक्वायरमेंट फॉर कमिंग अप विद द प्लांट, राइट?
Ma'am, but like
yeah.
Ma'am, like once the equilibrium is achieved, like the process is osmosis, right? So once the equilibrium is achieved, the plant cannot absorb further water. Na? So ma'am, how does that thing is taken into account?
See, that is definitely there, and the plants, even if they are on the soil, they have a mechanism of stopping the drawing of nutrients. So जितना requirement है वो ऐसा नहीं होगा कि वो एक्सेस हो जाएगा न्यूट्रिएंट. तो हमें वही तो देखना पड़ता है. एवरी डे वी हैव टू टेक द पीएच एंड द टीडीएस रिकॉर्डिंग टू बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि न्यूट्रिएंट की जरूरत है नहीं है. तो ऑन अ डेली बेसिस or on a weekly basis we need to monitor the growth and check
Ma'am,
that.
how we restrict this, like how we are like attempting to restrict that thing, like it's in water continuously, so how are we able to restrict that thing?
That's very true. We as architects are not able to understand कि कौन से plant को क्या nutrition की जरूरत है, but definitely with the help of an agronomist he will be able to tell you कि this much quantity or this much ml of this nutrient needs to be put after so many days. So that monitoring is definitely required. So there you need an expertise of an agronomist.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
I would like to see your project with AI. So अगर
Yes,
आपने
ma'am. Yes.
so we'll do that also. Yeah. I was
Okay,
looking
ma'am.
for some kind of projects to come up from the students where they could add their innovation, as you are saying, artificial intelligence and such other things. So those things could be added on to the existing projects that we have to make it more energy efficient and to make it more, widely being used by people at the grassroots level.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Prathamesh.
Hello, good morning, ma'am. I'm Prathamesh from Parbhani, Maharashtra. I have an idea or like a question, like have you tried doing it on large scale, like community farming? If we do it in like apartments or in temples in the towns, like we collectively collect some money and do it, and then collectively get the benefits of it. Is it economically sustainable?
Yes.
As you say, it's not cheap.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Prathamesh. Actually, if we can definitely have it at the community level, no doubt. We have a Mehendi Bagh colony and such other colonies which are here in Nagpur, and they are like the Ghoda Muslims who are staying in a particular community, and as they are into a very closed loop, they do have community farming that they have in their locality. So one such community is here in Nagpur which has initiated that, but that example can be extended on to the other communities also in Nagpur. And as you said, we can implement these projects in temples definitely, because even in the gurudwaras where you have langar every day, so probably there also you can come up with such kind of hydroponic system wherein on a daily basis, you have the requirement of maybe 5 kilos or 10 kilos of a particular vegetable or particular grass or something like that. So that is something which is being in the pipeline, and definitely we are working on to that. Even there are some clients who have approached to us, और आजकल ये भी एक trend है जिसमें the people are having their own cows and buffaloes in their house. Maybe 1 or 2 cows are there in the residence itself. Maybe it's a joint family and a very big house. So they have the the cow which they are milking. So उस cow
Yes,
के requirement के लिए they have got a 5 kilos or 10 kilos of grass that they require. So they want the hydroponically prepared grass close to their house that can be fed to their cow so that they know what the cow is eating, and thus they can also regulate the quality of the milk which they are getting from the cow. So हमारे पास ऐसे भी कुछ clients हैं who have come up with the hydroponic system being installed just to cultivate a particular kind of grass for their cows and buffaloes and animals which are there within the bungalow premises. Yeah.
thank you, ma'am.
It looks like we have covered almost all the questions. Now I would like to invite Indra Kumar sir to present the vote of thanks.
That was a very interesting session, ma'am. Indra sir, yes.
Thank you, Hemant. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really a very interesting session. I enjoyed it. Even I did some research last year about the hydroponics and aquaponics, and I wrote an essay about it. And so I really like these techniques. I think these techniques are the futuristic thing. These can make our urban cities more resilient, and they can be more livable.
Yes.
So this is how I mean, I was thinking about it. Ki how can we make a rural setup in the urban areas? Like if we can club them together, then there will be no line between urban and rural. Both can live together. Both can have all the things together. So these are the techniques which are very much helpful for this. And I really believe there's this new generation, the students, they must be learning things about from them, and they should actually try to incorporate these things into their design, into the academic design, so that they'll get to know something about it. And
Yeah. To add on to this, sir, I would just like to
yes,
inform
ma'am.
you that the Council of Architecture has also taken up an initiative where they have the Urban Studio Research Project. So this is an urban studio research project. So under that, they take up certain social issues in your city or identified by your students and faculty, and which they would like to work upon. So we have initiated this urban studio research project, and we were one of the participants. So our project was selected at the Council of Architecture level, and this research project would go on for around 2 years, in which we would be working more towards how to create awareness about urban farming in Nagpur, and also to understand what difference it is bringing about in the climate and the environmental concerns also. So if at all like the students of IIT Banaras also Department of Architecture, they want to take up, so this Council of Architecture Urban Studio Research Project can be taken up. So here hydroponics is not just something relating to climate, but it is to water conservation. It is also into landscape designing, indoor and outdoor landscaping. So you can frame your research project accordingly. So this is an important part of the scholarship and the project that has been taken up by the COA also. So from colleges all over the country, around 20 such projects have been selected, and we at Ideas are one of the projects which have been selected. So we are working on that. So it will last for 2 years. So maybe after 2 years, I will have something more to share with all your students regarding the research that we have done.
Okay, that's great, ma'am.
That would
That's
be
great
great.
initiative taken up by the Council of Architecture. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
great.
We would like to explore that, I guess, sir.
Yeah, definitely you must. It could be like a collaboration, or it could be between the two colleges, and we are trying to come up with some kind of a pilot project or something. So that is also a possibility that can be done. So maybe in the future we have a collaboration of the students, and we come up with a nice hydroponic project, which is the pilot project, maybe at IIT Banaras with the help of students of architecture, civil engineering, and then the students also learn something new comes up in the campus, and the Council of Architecture is also there to look into the kind of efforts which have been taken by students.
Definitely, ma'am.
Great.
Definitely, we'll definitely try to work on this regard, and we'll definitely try to get support from the students as well. Okay,
Yes.
and I'm really thankful to you for your time today, and you enlighten us, all of us, including student faculties, about it. We also learned something new, which is different, and I just hope we'll take it forward. We'll have more interaction in the future. So, from on the from our department, I would like to say I would like to express our gratitude to you for your time. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so
Thank you, ma'am, for your time today. It was really enlightening, I believe, for the students. I think Hemang was there for the entire time. It was really enlightening for us, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
so much, Aditya, for inviting me and sharing my project with your students, telling them something different than architecture, but definitely it affects somewhere or the other. We are all into the same, so we need
Yeah,
to
this
understand.
online platform has given us this option of extra knowledge sharing, and somehow we are getting benefited from it. Although there are a lot of negatives, but yes, these are the best parts.
Yes,
Yes, sir. There are certain limitations, but this is the best part that we can connect globally. We can, the boundaries has been, I mean, there are no
Removed.
boundaries, no limits as of now. We can get connected throughout the world. Yeah,
There are
that's
certain
what
things for
best part.
which we might need to go physically, but otherwise, this has actually given us a very good opportunity to
Yeah.
get connected.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I look forward to some kind of a joint collaboration or some kind of a pilot project we take up, uh, maybe relating to hydroponics or any such thing in the future with your students. That will be great.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Definitely. Definitely, ma'am.
We'll get in touch with you regarding this. We'll discuss amongst our faculties and the department, and we'll get in touch with you, ma'am.
Thank
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you
Okay,
then.
ma'am. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much, students, for being there. And even
And
few other
thank you,
students.
Hemang, for comparing the entire session. It was really well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.